The bright morning sun reflected off the polished black surface of the Bugatti like a mirror, but inside the luxury machine, something was terribly wrong. 5 of the biggest technology companies in the world had spent 3 days trying to solve the problem. Teams of engineers flew in from different countries. Expensive diagnostic equipment filled an entire underground garage. Screens flashed with data. Experts argued over software logs and encrypted system reports. Yet the car remained silent. A multi-million-dollar masterpiece had become nothing more than an immobile sculpture. And standing unnoticed near the back wall was a tired single father wearing oil-stained work clothes. Nobody knew that within 5 minutes, he would solve what the world's brightest minds could not. If stories about kindness, determination, and second chances inspire you, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments as you listen. Stories like this remind us that greatness often appears where nobody expects it. The Bugatti belonged to Ryland Mercer, one of the wealthiest technology CEOs in the country. His company had transformed artificial intelligence and smart transportation systems. Newspapers called him a genius. Business magazines featured him on their covers. Investors followed his every move. That particular morning, Ryland was preparing for one of the most important events of his career. International investors were arriving for a demonstration of a revolutionary transportation platform expected to change the future of mobility. Everything was scheduled down to the minute. Then his custom Bugatti refused to start. At first, it seemed like a minor inconvenience. Within an hour, it became a crisis. The vehicle contained a highly customized security and communication system connected to confidential project data. The malfunction triggered multiple security protocols, locking critical systems and preventing access to information needed for the presentation. Ryland immediately contacted the world's most respected technical specialists. One team arrived. Then another. Then another. Soon, experts representing 5 major technology corporations occupied his corporate headquarters. Yet every attempt failed. The deeper they investigated, the stranger the problem became. By the 3rd day, frustration filled the underground garage. Millions of dollars had been spent. No progress had been made. Across town, meanwhile, life looked very different for a man named Elias Vance. Elias was 38 years old and raising his 10-year-old daughter, Mara, alone. Life had not been kind to him. His wife had passed away after a long illness 4 years earlier. Medical bills consumed nearly everything they owned. Their savings disappeared. Their home was sold. Dreams were postponed indefinitely. Now they lived in a modest apartment above a small repair shop where Elias worked 6 days a week. Every morning before sunrise, he prepared Mara's breakfast, packed her lunch, helped with homework, and then rushed downstairs to spend long hours fixing engines, generators, lawn equipment, and occasionally old cars. Money was always tight. Some months he worried about rent. Other months he worried about groceries. But every evening, no matter how exhausted he felt, he sat beside his daughter and listened to stories about school, friends, and future dreams. Mara believed her father could fix anything. Elias wasn't so sure. Still, he kept trying. One afternoon, a former customer entered the repair shop with unusual news. A luxury vehicle had been transported to a nearby private facility. Specialists from around the world were attempting repairs. The customer mentioned it casually while waiting for an oil change. Elias barely paid attention. Cars beyond his financial imagination held little relevance to his life. Then the customer laughed and said that apparently nobody could figure out the issue. Something about that comment lingered in Elias's mind. Machines fascinated him. Not because they were expensive. Because they told stories. Every malfunction had a reason. Every problem left clues. That evening, after finishing work, Elias searched online for information about the situation. Public reports revealed very little, but enough details were available to spark his curiosity. The next morning, he drove toward the facility during a lunch break. Not because he expected access. Not because he thought he was smarter than world-renowned engineers. He was simply curious. The security staff initially refused entry. Then one manager recognized him from previous repair work performed on company vehicles years earlier. After considerable hesitation, they allowed him to observe from a distance. The underground garage looked like a science fiction movie set. Advanced scanners surrounded the Bugatti. Engineers monitored complex data streams. Computers displayed thousands of diagnostic readings. The atmosphere felt tense. Everyone seemed exhausted. Elias quietly watched. He noticed something interesting. Nobody was looking at the car anymore. They were looking at the computers. For nearly 15 minutes, he studied the vehicle itself. The engineers ignored him. To them, he appeared insignificant. Just another mechanic. Eventually, one frustrated technician noticed Elias staring. The technician smirked. Several others laughed. The implication was obvious. What could this ordinary repairman possibly contribute? Elias wasn't offended. He simply continued observing. Years of repairing old machines had taught him an important lesson. Technology becomes more complicated. Human assumptions become more dangerous. Sometimes the simplest explanation hides beneath the most sophisticated analysis. Then he saw it. A tiny detail. Almost invisible. Near a custom sensor housing beneath a concealed panel. His eyes narrowed. He stepped closer. One engineer immediately objected. Another rolled his eyes. But the manager who knew Elias allowed him 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds. Elias crouched beside the vehicle. He removed a small inspection cover. Behind it sat a connector assembly integrated into the security system. A microscopic retaining clip had shifted slightly out of position. Not enough to appear broken. Not enough to trigger standard diagnostics. But enough to create intermittent communication failures between multiple systems. The resulting cascade of errors perfectly explained every symptom. Elias carefully pressed the clip into place. The movement took less than 5 seconds. Silence filled the garage. Several engineers exchanged skeptical looks. Then someone initiated the startup sequence. The engine roared to life instantly. A thunderous sound echoed through the facility. Every screen lit green. Security systems unlocked. Communication networks restored. Diagnostics cleared. 3 days of failure vanished in a single moment. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The garage remained frozen. The impossible had just happened. Ryland Mercer arrived minutes later. He expected another disappointing update. Instead, he found dozens of stunned engineers staring at a running Bugatti. When he learned what happened, disbelief crossed his face. The world's most advanced specialists had overlooked a tiny mechanical issue because they assumed the problem had to be complex. The man who solved it wasn't a famous engineer. He wasn't a technology executive. He wasn't even a university professor. He was a single father who repaired ordinary machines for ordinary people. Ryland requested a private meeting with Elias. The repairman felt uncomfortable walking through luxurious executive offices. Everything around him reflected a world completely different from his own. Yet Ryland listened carefully as Elias explained his reasoning. The CEO became increasingly fascinated. Not by the repair itself. By the mindset behind it. Elias approached problems differently. He combined patience, observation, humility, and practical experience. He wasn't trying to prove his intelligence. He was trying to understand the machine. That distinction mattered. Over the next hour, Ryland asked about his life. Elias reluctantly shared pieces of his story. The medical struggles. The financial hardships. The responsibility of raising Mara alone. The dreams sacrificed for survival. For the first time in years, someone listened without interrupting. Someone genuinely cared. When the conversation ended, Elias expected a simple thank you. Instead, Ryland offered something extraordinary. Not money. Not a reward. An opportunity. The CEO invited him to join a special innovation team focused on real-world problem solving. At first, Elias refused. The proposal seemed impossible. People like him didn't belong in executive boardrooms. People like him fixed things in garages. But Ryland persisted. Talent, he explained, doesn't always arrive wearing expensive suits. Sometimes it arrives carrying a toolbox. Weeks later, Elias accepted. The transition wasn't easy. Many employees questioned the decision. Some quietly mocked his background. Others assumed he had gotten lucky. Yet every challenge reinforced what Ryland already knew. Elias possessed remarkable insight. He noticed details others missed. He understood how technology interacted with reality. He solved practical problems that expensive simulations failed to predict. Slowly, skepticism transformed into respect. Months passed. Then years. Elias became one of the company's most valuable advisors. Not because he had the most education. Not because he spoke the loudest. Because he never forgot where he came from. Meanwhile, life changed for Mara as well. For the first time, financial fear stopped dominating their lives. She attended excellent schools. She explored interests previously beyond reach. Most importantly, she watched her father discover confidence he had buried beneath years of struggle. One evening, several years after the Bugatti incident, Mara stood on a stage accepting a scholarship award. Hundreds of people filled the auditorium. Among them sat Ryland Mercer. As Mara delivered her speech, she spoke about perseverance, kindness, and belief. Then she shared a memory. She described growing up above a repair shop. She described watching her father return home exhausted every night. She described how he never stopped helping others despite his own hardships. And she described the day the world finally noticed the man she had always believed in. Many people in the audience wiped away tears. Including Ryland. Because he understood something important. The Bugatti had never been the real story. The real story was about a father who refused to quit. A man who quietly carried responsibility, grief, sacrifice, and hope without expecting recognition. The real story was about hidden value. About overlooked people. About the extraordinary strength found in ordinary lives. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts and reflections below. Stories like this remind us that every person we pass has a story we cannot see and a potential we may never fully understand. Special request: comment with the word kindness if you believe one act of respect can change someone's life forever. Years later, visitors entering the company's headquarters often noticed a small framed photograph displayed in a prominent hallway. It wasn't a picture of a billion-dollar product launch. It wasn't a picture of a corporate award. It wasn't even a picture of the famous Bugatti. It showed a father and daughter standing outside a modest repair shop on a bright sunny afternoon. Beneath the photograph appeared a simple inscription. Never underestimate the person everyone else overlooks. And every employee who passed that picture carried the same reminder into their workday. Genius is valuable. Technology is powerful. Success is impressive. But humility, perseverance, and kindness can open doors that brilliance alone never will. Because sometimes the person who changes everything isn't the one with the biggest title. Sometimes it's a single dad with tired eyes, grease-stained hands, and a heart that never gave up.